So today's story starts here. I'm right now at the formerly beloved TNT supermarket. This was TNT's only location in downtown Toronto, and it was the heart of the, I guess, downtown Asian community. You can imagine what happened. After we saw the news, the Asian community here in downtown Toronto collectively said no. Even my friend's mom, which is based out of Australia, whenever she comes visit, she goes to that TNT. It was her favorite supermarket. And then the conversation turned into, what do we need to stock up on? Because the local supermarkets are not going to be able to carry the stuff that we usually get. Look at this. It's just not the same. So here's the thing. What really matters to the story is what happened just prior to that TNT closing. And in order to cover that story, we need to do a little bit of a recap. So throughout all of 2019, every day you saw this story in the news.
Game on here. A trade war between the United States and China is here.
In fact, when I was originally writing the premise of the story, I was wondering to myself, what would it take for people to become hilariously racist against Asians? You know the joke.
Okay, you're good to go.
Tonight, in a rare move, the U.S. declaring coronavirus a public health emergency. In effect, a temporary ban on nearly all Chinese travelers.
Honestly, I have not experienced any type of super racist stuff while I lived my entire life here in Toronto, Canada. In fact, I haven't experienced racism throughout my travels in Europe, throughout my travels throughout the United States, and maybe I've just been lucky so far. The only type of racism I usually see is the stuff on TV. You know, that Hollywood trope about Asians not being able to pronounce L's or R's.
So Ronri and Sadri around.
Or, you know, the slanty eye gesture. Just, I haven't really seen that in real life. It's really hard for me to imagine the people of this city, Toronto, Canada, doing that kind of stuff. Turns out, I didn't have to wait too long to figure out what would cause some people to become super racist in this city. And it's kind of unfortunate.
It doesn't help that a major Toronto newspaper recently published this editorial cartoon.
People telling me, oh my God, don't go to this part of Toronto because, there's lots of Asian people there. That's how this descends very quickly. That's exactly what happened during SARS, and none of that is remotely helpful.
Let's talk about some confirmed details about the coronavirus.
This is the Chinese doctor who tried to warn the medical community about the coronavirus. He was told to be quiet by the authorities before weeks later being diagnosed with the virus himself.
Wuhan in China now on lockdown as the country struggles with fear of a pandemic.
Desperate measures to try and contain the deadly coronavirus.
More than 11 million people who live in that city now kept from leaving.
So let's fast forward to January 26th. Now, this is the day after the beginning of the Chinese New Year festival festivities, and I'm hearing reports on the news as well as on social media that people are trying to get around the Wuhan blockade. So there were two stories which completely freaked me out, and they had to do with people purposely spreading the disease. The first one coming from the Singtao Daily, it's a Hong Kong-based newspaper, and it was about how patients in Wuhan, one specific patient in Wuhan, he ripped off the mask of doctors and spit on them in an attempt to purposely spread the corona disease or virus. The second story came out of a Japanese newspaper, and it was about how a mainland tourist went over to Taiwan, didn't disclose that he had the disease, went off into a nightclub in Taiwan and just pretty much infected everybody at that nightclub. So after I read those two stories, I was done. I didn't want to go to any Chinese restaurants or any place where Asians hang out. I didn't want to get infected, and that seemed to be the correct move at the time. And then later that same day after I saw those news reports, this happened.
Officials made the announcement today after they were informed this afternoon that a man who traveled to Toronto from Wuhan, China, displayed symptoms of the virus.
And in the following weeks, I have heard so many different news reports from Toronto newspapers claiming that Chinese businesses were hurt because of racism. That's probably the furthest thing from the truth. In fact, majority of their demographic were probably Chinese people in the first place. That doesn't make any sense. So for this part of the story, we're actually going to be heading to Chinatown now. Also, I do want to note that it's not clear where the novel coronavirus originated from. Some netizens on China's social media app Weibo, it's like their Twitter, have said that it's from some type of seafood market or exotic meat market in somewhere in Wuhan. Now, social media on our side has taken this little tidbit of information and turned it into something completely new. I've heard stories about how people said it's from eating like exotic snakes, from eating exotic bats, or it could have been just like one guy that's just chopping up all these different types of meats on one cutting board, and because of some unsanitary conditions, all this like random stuff put together turned into like this one super virus that's now infecting everybody. It's been so long since I've seen one of these things. Remember when you were in high school, university, and your professor told you to not use Wikipedia as your primary source of information? Well, social media is kind of like that, but on steroids. It's a place where misinformation can spread, and it's very important that you don't use... This is how all that racist stuff gets spread onto the internet, because everyone's just sharing misinformation. Probably a very extreme approach to this whole crisis thing. It still looks pretty empty though. If you're wondering why I'm wearing a different jacket, it's because I filmed all of this in all different orders. But today I'm gonna head to this restaurant. It's my favorite restaurant in Chinatown. Now we're talking about what's actually true about the coronavirus. It's currently 12 o'clock and I don't think I've ever seen this restaurant so empty before. Fish katsu soup with some fried dough sticks. That's literally what they're called. So let's talk about some things we know about the coronavirus. One is that it takes 2 weeks for the coronavirus to show symptoms into individuals. So since the last time we had a proven infection in Ontario, there hasn't been any new cases since then. Meaning it's probably safe to go outside, to go to Chinese restaurants, to do all these things in Chinese neighborhoods because the infection is not here in Toronto, Canada. As for the individual that flown from Wuhan to Toronto on January 23rd, 2020, that person has already been released out of hospital and now he's in, self-quarantine. As long as you're washing your hands frequently and you're making sure you're making proper precautions in a global health scare, then you're probably going to be fine until authorities say otherwise. So the people that are wearing these things, these are just surgical masks that Asian people wear in order to stop the spread of viruses. People should be applauded for wearing these as opposed to being feared because they're just preventing other people from getting sick. This is the N95 mask. This is the mask that people actually recommend you wear during health crises, simply because it's more like a respirator, low-end respirator. But chances are you don't need this at this current time in Toronto. So if you have one of these, or you have a box of these, make sure you share it with your community. On top of that, it's also well known that all the airlines have stopped flying to mainland China, and every single passenger that's coming out of China are scrutinized to the extreme. They're all being checked by temperature for everything before they can go anywhere. So even if they were able to get a connection flight from China to somewhere else to fly to North America, they're going to have to go through several different checks and make sure that they're not infected. From my vantage point after researching the story for the last 2 weeks, the system is working here around the world. And in China, well, who knows what's happening in China. I read a story somewhere where people are saying that you can get infected from Portugal. That is the most stupidest story I've heard throughout this entire whole corona thing. Share your insights with your closest friends. So what was the whole point of this entire story? Well, one, it's extremely racist to go out of your way to call Chinese restaurants, say, are they serving fast food? That's extremely racist. Come on, guys. For this last part of the video, we do have to go drive an hour north to prove something. I just realized I haven't really fully explained what TNT is yet. It's like a place where you can find all Asian wonderful goods. So not just Chinese food, but also Korean and Japanese things. So it's just a great place to find really unique things that are from Asia. Honestly, I've seen a few people with masks here, but on the most part, it's 1000% safe. There's no reason why you need a mask. Oh, hey Venus, nice meeting you here. Do you know where to find Japanese curry here? Found it. Japanese curry. Oh yeah. Hot. Extreme hot. Where are you? There you go. This is more of a message for Loblaws, parent company of TNT. You gotta make another TNT in downtown Toronto. I do not want to have to drive an hour every time to go Asian groceries. That's just ridiculous. Like seriously, like where else am I supposed to find my Japanese milk bread to make my spicy chicken katsu sandwiches in downtown Toronto? We gotta figure this out. Loblaws, let's just make this happen. Alright, that's it for me today. Thank you guys for watching, and until next time, I'll see you guys later. Alright, so this is a disclaimer. This is still an ongoing story. If there's any new developments that occur, I would highly recommend you listen to your local health authorities for up-to-date advice and information.